I had been on the road for 2 straight weeks, working myself to the bone. All I wanted was to get home a day early and give my wife the surprise of a lifetime. It was 11 at night when I finally let myself into the apartment. The place was pitch black. Chloe was likely already fast asleep. I suppressed my excitement, washing up in the dark before quietly slipping under the covers. A familiar fragrance, mixed with the heavy scent of wine, hit me instantly. I smirked to myself. Looks like the girl had quite a few drinks tonight. 2 weeks of longing flared into an uncontrollable fire. I pulled her soft, warm body against mine, letting desire take the wheel. It wasn't until the next morning, when the harsh sunlight spilled across the bed, that I opened my eyes to see two stunningly beautiful faces, both with eyes bloodshot and burning with a murderous rage. To make it back early, I had crushed 2 weeks' worth of work into 10 days. When the plane touched down at 10 p.m., I didn't call Chloe. I wanted the surprise to be perfect. As the Uber sped through the familiar streets of Chicago, I pulled out my phone and looked at my lock screen, a photo of Chloe beaming at the camera. My exhaustion evaporated. Every day I was gone, she'd text me saying how lonely the house felt and how much she missed me. Reading those sweet, soft messages made my heart ache with a desperate need to be back by her side. I paid the driver, grabbed my suitcase, and headed up. I turned the key in the lock with practiced precision, making sure not to make a sound. The living room was shrouded in darkness, save for the pale moonlight filtering through the gaps in the curtains, casting ghostly streaks across the hardwood floor. I kicked off my shoes and tucked my suitcase into the corner. By the dim glow of my phone, I noticed something on the shoe rack. Next to Chloe's heels sat a pair of women's sneakers I didn't recognize. My heart skipped. A guest? This late, I crept toward the master bedroom and pressed my ear to the door. Silence, punctuated only by steady, rhythmic breathing. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. It was probably just a friend who had been over during the day and left her shoes behind. I headed to the bathroom, letting the hot water wash away the grime of travel. 2 weeks of client dinners and heavy drinking had left my system thrashed. There truly was no place like home. After my shower, I wrapped a towel around my waist, dried my hair, and tiptoed into the bedroom. I didn't dare turn on the light for fear of waking Chloe. The room was thick with her signature perfume, underscored by a heavy, fermented scent of wine. Looks like she'd been hitting the red wine while I was away. I felt my way to the bed and peeled back a corner of the duvet. Immediately, a warm, soft body pressed into me. In the dark, I couldn't see her face, but I could smell the wine and shampoo on her hair. She seemed to be in a deep sleep, mumbling something incoherent in her dreams before rolling over, resting a smooth arm across my chest. The moment our skin touched, it was like an electric current snapped through me. The 2 weeks separation, fueled by the lingering scent of alcohol, turned the spark in my gut into a forest fire. I leaned down, finding her lips with mine. Her response was sluggish, clouded by a drunken haze, but her body's instinct was honest. I couldn't hold back anymore. I rolled over, pinning her beneath me. Under the covers, the temperature spiked. Everything happened with a natural, almost primal flow, tinged with a post-drinking wildness. Somewhere in the blur, a fleeting thought crossed my mind. Something felt different. Her body seemed more toned than Chloe's, and her hair felt wrong. A sharp, clean bob instead of long waves. But the thoughts were drowned out by the tidal wave of heat. Maybe she'd gotten a haircut. Maybe it had just been too long, and my memory was playing tricks on me. In that moment, I only had one thought. I needed her right now. The next morning, the sun was my enemy. A hangover-like throb pounded behind my eyes. I must have picked up the scent of whatever she'd been drinking. Habitually, I reached out to pull her into my arms, but my hand met the cold, slippery feel of silk pajamas. That wasn't right. Chloe never wore pajamas to bed. My eyes snapped open. The first thing I saw was a stranger's face, terrifyingly beautiful and inches away. She had a sharp, short haircut and features that looked like they were sketched by an artist. Her skin was porcelain, but her stunning eyes were now webbed with red veins, staring at me with a rage that could have leveled a city. My brain felt like it had been hit by a flashbang. Who was this? Where was Chloe? I stiffened, slowly turning my head to the other side of the bed. Chloe was right there. She was wearing her usual pink slip, her long hair a mess against the pillow. Her face, usually so full of life, was a mask of shock, shame, and a complex emotion I couldn't quite decipher. Her eyes were red, too, as if she'd been crying all night. Then a thought so absurd it turned my blood to ice clawed its way into my mind. Last night, had I held Chloe's best friend, thinking she was my wife? Mark! Chloe's voice was a jagged rasp, her words forced out through a throat tight with cold hatred. Slap! A A sharp, stinging crack echoed as her hand met my face. The heat of the blow spread instantly, my cheeks swelling before I could even blink. I sat there, stunned. You bastard. What did you do to my best friend? Chloe's voice trembled, her tears falling like shattered glass. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. What could I say? That I got the wrong person? That I mixed them up? Even I wouldn't believe a lie that pathetic. I looked instinctively at the short-haired girl. She wasn't crying, and she wasn't screaming. She just stared at me with eyes like daggers of ice, looking at me as if I were already dead. Her lips were bitten white, and her body shuddered beneath the duvet. This was Riley, Chloe's absolute best friend. I'd met her a few times. She was a straight talker, a bit of a tomboy, and undeniably gorgeous. But because she was always attached to Chloe's hip, I'd never given her a second thought. But now, I caught sight of the crimson stain on the white sheets, and my brain completely short-circuited. Get out! Chloe grabbed a pillow and began pummeling me with it in a frenzy. Get the hell out of here. I never want to see your face again. I scrambled out of the bed, grabbing my scattered clothes and practically crawling out of the bedroom. The door slammed behind me with a thunderous boom. I stood barefoot on the cold hardwood of the living room, a t-shirt thrown on haphazardly. The pain in my face was nothing compared to the suffocating panic and regret in my chest. What the hell had I done? I stood there like an idiot for what felt like hours, until my legs went numb. My head was a mess of static. Apologize? Explain? How do you explain the unexplainable? I had destroyed my marriage and ruined an innocent girl's life in a single night. Minutes ticked by like hours on a grill. Finally, the bedroom door opened. Chloe walked out, dressed and her hair brushed, though her eyes were still swollen like walnuts. She didn't even glance at me as she sat on the sofa, her voice as cold as a grave. We need to talk. My throat felt like it was full of sand. I shuffled over to the armchair across from her, feeling like a death row inmate awaiting the final word. There's nothing to talk about, I said, my voice cracking. It's my fault. I own it. Your fault. Chloe let out a sharp, mocking laugh. Mark, don't make it sound so simple. You cheated on me with my best friend in our own bed, and you think it's my fault covers it. I didn't cheat. I blurted out. I was exhausted. I'd been drinking. I thought it was you. You thought. Chloe looked at me like I was a punchline. Mark, we've been married for 3 years. You're telling me you don't recognize my body? You don't know my habits? Are you trying to insult my intelligence? Or are you just that comfortable lying to yourself? I was speechless. She was right. How could I have been so wrong? Even in the dark, even with the wine, how could that familiarity just vanish? And yet, the reality was staring me in the face. I had failed, catastrophically. I don't know. I stammered. I swear I thought it was you. Enough. Chloe cut me off, her patience hitting zero. I don't want to hear your disgusting excuses. It happened. It's done. She took a deep breath, her gaze turning granite hard. I want a divorce. Those 4 words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. I looked up, reeling. Divorce. What else did you expect? A cruel smile touched the corners of her mouth. Mark, do you really think we can go back after this? How am I supposed to look at Riley? How am I supposed to look at you? I struggled to breathe. I knew I'd made an unforgivable mistake, but the thought of losing everything was a different kind of pain. We'd been together since college. 7 years of dating, 3 years of marriage. A decade of our lives. Was a decade of memories really supposed to end because of one nightmarish mistake? Chloe, please just listen to me. Give me one more chance. A chance? She scoffed. I gave you plenty of chances. I gave you my life, and you spent it in bed with another woman. Her words were like a knife to the heart. Just then, the bedroom door opened again. Riley stepped out. She was dressed now, a simple white t-shirt and jeans. Her face was still pale, but her eyes had settled into a flat, dead calm. She walked over to Chloe, squeezed her shoulder, and then looked at me. Mark, I told Chloe everything that happened, she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. Chloe was wasted last night. I dropped her off and didn't feel right leaving her alone, so I stayed to keep an eye on her. I didn't expect you to come home early. She paused, searching for the words. I carry some of this, too. I shouldn't have been in your bed. But you... Her eyes narrowed, and that calm cracked just enough to show a deep, visceral loathing. You're a monster. I couldn't even look her in the eye. I put my head down like a beaten dog. Chloe took Riley's hand, her voice softening. Riley, honey, it's not your fault. Don't blame yourself. This is on him. He's the one who couldn't keep it in his pants. She turned back to me, the softness vanishing. Mark, I'm done talking. I'll have a lawyer draft the papers. You're leaving with nothing. My parents bought this condo for me. It stays with me. We each keep our own cars. You take your personal savings and get out. That's it. She sounded like she was negotiating a business merger, cold, decisive, and completely devoid of emotion. I looked at her, and for the first time, she felt like a stranger. Was this really the woman who used to tell me she couldn't live without me? I'm not signing a divorce, I said through gritted teeth. You don't have a choice. Chloe flared up again. Mark, don't push me. You did this. What do you want? For us to all live here together as one big happy family? The insult stung. My face burned, my fists clenching until my knuckles popped. Riley went paper white. Chloe, stop, Riley whispered, pulling at Chloe's sleeve. Why should I? Chloe snapped, pointing a finger at my face. I want this piece of trash to know exactly how disgusting he is. Mark, I'm telling you, this marriage is over. If you don't sign, I'll go to your office. I'll go to your parents. I will make sure everyone knows what a pathetic excuse for a man you are. Watching her go hysterical, my heart finally began to sink. In her eyes, I wasn't a husband anymore. I was something to be discarded and trampled. A decade of love, gone in a heartbeat. Fine, I forced out. I'll sign. If it had come to this, there was no point in holding on. Chloe seemed surprised I'd given in so fast. A flicker of something that looked like triumph crossed her face. Smart move, she spat. Now, pack your bags and get the hell out of my house. I didn't look at her or Riley. I walked into the guest room and started packing my meager belongings. It didn't take long. One suitcase was enough to hold my life. As I dragged the bag toward the door, I found myself looking back at the living room one last time. Chloe was holding Riley, whispering comforts. Riley was leaning on her shoulder, still shaking. It looked like a picture of sisterly devotion. And I was the intruder, the villain who had broken their world. I gave a self-deprecating half-smile, opened the door, and walked out. As the door clicked shut, I heard Chloe's voice from inside, muffled but clear, tinged with a strange sense of relief. He's finally gone. I froze. My chest felt like it was being sawed open with a dull blade. I couldn't breathe. I dragged my suitcase down the hall like a ghost. The morning sun was blinding. I felt exposed, nowhere to hide. I pulled out my phone to find a hotel, but I noticed an unread message. It was from Chloe, sent at 3 a.m., right when everything had been happening. I opened it. It was just a photo of a handsome man's profile in a high-end restaurant. He was holding a glass of wine, smiling at the camera with a look of pure charm. Then, a text from Chloe followed. Sweetie, I finally play my hand with Mark. As soon as he gets back from his trip, I'm ending it. Just wait for me, okay? My brain felt like a bomb had gone off. The blood rushed to my head and then froze solid. I stared at the photo. I knew that face. Julian Vance, the new VP of my firm. A high-flying Ivy League prick who thought he owned the world. When did they start this? I racked my brain. Last month, at the company gala, Chloe had come as my guest, wearing a wine-red dress that turned every head in the room. Julian had noticed her, making a point to come over and introduce himself. I thought it was just corporate networking. I was a complete idiot. I finally played my hand. She never played any hand. Before I left for the trip, she was kissing me goodbye and telling me she'd miss me. It was all an act. She had planned to kick me to the curb all along. She didn't want the divorce because of my mistake. She wanted it because she was already gone. My mistake was just the perfect weapon, a way to divorce me while making sure she walked away as the victim and I walked away with nothing. I started to laugh, a dry, bitter sound that hurt my chest. All this time, I thought we were building a life together. To her, I was just a stepping stone. Now that she found a bigger stone, she was done with me. I gripped my phone until my knuckles turned white. A fury I'd never felt before, a mixture of rage and utter humiliation, swirled in my gut. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to be cold, to be rational. Going back there now to scream at her would change nothing. She'd just call me a liar and a harasser. I needed proof. Real proof. I caught a cab to a hotel and checked in. I splashed cold water on my face, staring at my bloodshot eyes in the mirror. Mark, stop being a doormat, I told myself. I opened my laptop and started digging into Julian Vance. His bio was perfect, top schools, incredible track record. I used my access to the company's internal system to find his personal contact info and address. Then, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went online and hired a private investigator. I sent over photos of Julian and Chloe with one instruction. I want everything. Every dinner, every hotel, every word. Make it detailed. Exhaustion finally claimed me, and I collapsed onto the hotel bed. Now I just had to wait. The next few days were a blur. I took a leave of absence from work and stayed in the hotel. During the day, I stared at my phone. At night, I was haunted by the memory of Riley's pale face and her look of pure disgust. I knew that regardless of what Chloe had done, the damage I'd done to Riley was real. I couldn't forgive myself for that. Chloe called a few times, her voice getting more impatient with every call, demanding I come sign the papers. She acted like every day I delayed was a personal insult to her new life. I made excuses. I needed time. I wasn't ready. She'd scream at me, calling me a coward and a hypocrite. I just listened, feeling nothing. On the fifth day, the investigator sent the file. It was a zip folder containing dozens of photos and several videos. Chloe and Julian at five-star restaurants, holding hands. Them kissing in the back of a car. Photos of them entering a luxury hotel together. The dates went back over a month, right through the time I was away. Then, there were the audio recordings. I clicked one. Chloe's voice, sweet and flirtatious, filled the room. Julian, are you really going to marry me? Of course, babe. Once I wrap up this project at the firm, I'm done with the old ball and chain at home, and I'm bringing you home for real. But what about Mark? What if he won't sign the papers? He can be pretty stubborn. He's a loser, Chloe. A corporate nobody who's only kept his head above water because of you. If it gets difficult, I've got a dozen ways to make him disappear from the firm. Besides, didn't you say his dad has the city council connections we need for the Southside Development Project? Once that's signed, he's got zero utility left. The recording cut out. I sat there, feeling like my blood had turned to liquid nitrogen. Loser? Zero utility? Is that what I was to them? A tool to be used and discarded? I had worked myself into a stomach ulcer for our future. I'd skipped meals to buy her the designer bag she wanted. I'd even asked my father to put in a word for her at the firm. And in return, I was zero utility. I looked at Chloe's smiling face on my screen and felt a wave of nausea. I picked up my phone and dialed her number. She picked up on the second ring, her voice sharp. What now, Mark? I don't have time for this. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., at the county clerk's office. Be there, or I'm filing a formal suit. I'll ruin you. I'll be there, I said, my voice eerily calm. My lack of emotion seemed to throw her. What? I said I'll be there at 9. But I have a condition. A condition? You think you're in a position to negotiate? I want Riley to be there, too. The line went quiet. After a long pause, Chloe asked coldly, why the hell do you want her there? Mark, don't tell me you're still obsessed with her. Hardly, I replied with a dry chuckle. I just think some things need to be said in front of everyone involved. After all, she was the catalyst for this divorce, wasn't she? Silence again. I could practically hear the gears turning in her head. She was afraid of a scene, but she was more afraid of me not signing. Fina, she'll be there. But don't try anything, Mark. I'm warning you. I will make your life a living hell if you pull a stunt. Don't worry, I said and hung up. The show's just starting, Chloe. The next morning, I arrived at the clerk's office 30 minutes early. I wore a tailor navy suit, my hair perfectly styled. I looked like a man on top of the world, a far cry from the wreck I had been 5 days ago. At 9 sharp, a white BMW pulled up. Chloe and Riley stepped out. Chloe looked radiant. Expensive makeup, designer clothes, a look of new beginnings written all over her. Riley, however, looked like a ghost. She was back in her white t-shirt and jeans, her face bare, dark circles under her eyes. When she saw me, she looked away immediately. Chloe marched up to me and shoved a folder into my chest. Here are the papers. I've already signed. Read them, sign them, and let's be done. Like I said, you walk away with nothing. She spoke with the arrogance of someone who had already won. I didn't take the folder. I just looked at her. What? Cold feet. Chloe sneered. Mark, don't play games with me. I'm not playing, I said, a cold smile touching my lips. I just think this agreement is a little unfair. Unfair, Chloe laughed. You cheated. I'm letting you walk away without a public scandal, and you think that's unfair? I cheated, I repeated, turning my gaze to Riley, who was standing like a statue. Riley, tell me, do you really think I cheated? Riley flinched. Her lips trembled, but she couldn't find her voice. See? Even she knows it, Chloe bragged. Stop struggling, Mark. It's over. Is it? I pulled out my phone and hit play on the recording. A loser. Zero utility. Southside Project. Julian's arrogant voice rang out clearly in the morning air. The color drained from Chloe's face so fast, it was like she'd seen a ghost. She stared at the phone, her eyes wide with terror. Where? Where did you get that? Were you stalking me? Do I need to stalk you? I asked, swiping to the next photo. It was the two of them kissing outside the hotel. Chloe, I was gone for 2 weeks. You were wearing a green hat for me the whole time, and now you're standing here telling me I cheated? My voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of a mountain. Chloe swayed on her feet. Riley snapped her head up, looking at the screen, then at Chloe. The shock in Riley's eyes turned into a deep, hollow disappointment. Chloe, is this true? Riley's voice was a whisper. Chloe's mouth moved, but nothing came out. The evidence was undeniable. So, I said, stepping closer to her, my eyes like flint, you were in such a hurry to divorce me not because of what I did, but because you'd already picked out my replacement. You wanted me out so you could jump into the arms of a guy who thinks I'm a tool. And to make sure you got the house and the money, you used your best friend. You set a trap, let me fall into it, and then piled the guilt on me so I'd walk away without a fight. Right? Every word made Chloe's face whiter. She finally broke, screaming at me, "No, it's not like that. Mark, let me explain." Explain. I laughed, and it felt like my heart was finally breaking for good. What's there to explain? That you were sleeping with Julian Vance to help my career? You're lying. Chloe pointed a shaking finger at me. Julie and I are just friends. Those photos are fake. You photoshopped them. Fake. I pulled a stack of high-resolution prints from my briefcase and threw them at her feet. Tell me these are fake, too. Chloe, do you think I'm an idiot? Do you think the whole world is as stupid as you think I am? The photos scattered on the pavement. Passers-by started to stop and stare. Chloe looked at the ground, then at the crowd, her strength failing her. She collapsed onto a nearby bench, looking small and broken. I looked down at her, feeling no joy, only a profound sense of waste. This was the woman I'd loved for 10 years. We're getting a divorce, I said, taking the folder from the bench and tearing her clean break agreement into shreds. But I'm not the one walking away with nothing. You are. I pulled out a new set of papers my lawyer had drafted overnight. This condo, the down payment came from my parents. I've paid a mortgage for 3 years. Legally, I own the lion's share. The cars? We split them. The savings? 50-50. And the most important part, I leaned down, whispering so only she could hear, you're going to publicly apologize to me and to Riley. If you don't, these photos and the audio files will be in the inbox of every board member at the firm by tomorrow morning, including Julian's wife. Chloe shivered violently. She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. You wouldn't. Watch me. I stood up and straightened my tie, returning to a state of cool indifference. I'll give you 24 hours. I expect your answer by tomorrow morning. I turned to leave, not wanting to spend another second in her presence. Mark, it was Riley. I stopped and looked back. Her eyes were red, her expression a mess of conflicting emotions. I'm sorry, she said, her voice thick, about everything that night. I'm so sorry. I looked at her, my heart heavy. She was a victim in this, too, used as a pawn by her best friend, losing something she could never get back. I shook my head gently. You're not the one who should be saying sorry. My eyes drifted past her to Chloe, who was still slumped on the bench. Then, I turned and walked away. Under the morning sun, my shadow stretched out long and straight. I knew that from this moment on, my life was finally mine again. The aftermath was even more explosive than I planned. The next day, I didn't get a call from Chloe. Instead, I got a call from Victoria Vance, Julian's wife. She was cold, sharp, and incredibly angry. She told me she'd already suspected Julian was stepping out and had been doing her own digging. The anonymous files I'd sent to the company's HR and board members were just the final nail in the coffin. I hadn't waited for Chloe's answer. I had no patience for her games anymore. Victoria Vance was a powerhouse. She had evidence of Julian embezzling funds and taking kickbacks on corporate contracts. She took it all to the board and the ethics committee. A firestorm ripped through the firm. Julian was fired for cause and stripped of his equity. His Ivy League golden boy reputation vanished in a weekend. And Chloe, as the co-conspirator and the woman at the center of the scandal, was terminated for conduct unbecoming of the firm. I heard she wanted Julian, but Victoria's security team blocked her at the gate. Julian was too busy trying to save his own skin to care about the woman who had helped destroy it. Chloe's dream of a high society life was dead. She had no job, no husband, and a reputation in tatters. A week later, she signed my papers. Every single condition was met. On the day we finalized it at the courthouse, she looked like she'd aged a decade. She didn't look at me. She signed, took her copy of the decree, and disappeared into the crowd. I walked out of the courthouse and took a long, deep breath. A 10-year chapter of my life had closed in the ugliest way possible. I didn't feel happy, and I didn't feel relieved. I just felt tired. I went home to see my parents. I told them everything. My mom cried and called me a fool for being blinded for so long. My dad didn't say much. He just poured me a glass of bourbon and sat with me in silence. It's over now, he said, patting my shoulder. Learn from it, son. Keep your eyes open next time. I nodded, my eyes stinging. In the wreckage of my marriage, I was grateful I still had them. Slowly, life returned to a new kind of normal. I changed firms, moving to a new company where no one knew my history. New environment, new colleagues, it helped the shadows fade. I started hitting the gym, reading more, and throwing myself into my work. I wasn't trying to prove anything to Chloe. I was trying to make up for the man I'd lost while I was with her. 6 months flew by. I had almost forgotten Chloe and Riley ever existed. Then, one night, I was working late and stopped at a 24-hour diner for a bite to eat. I saw her sitting in a corner booth, Riley. She looked different. Her hair had grown out a bit, and she looked thinner, more subdued. She was alone, staring at a plate of fries and a bottle of beer. I hesitated, then walked over. Mind if I sit? She jumped slightly at the sound of my voice. When she saw it was me, a flash of panic crossed her face, followed by something like recognition. "Go ahead," she said, nodding to the seat across from her. I sat down and ordered coffee. We sat in silence for a long time. The atmosphere was heavy with the weight of that night. How have you been?" I finally asked. "Okay," she said, her voice low. "You, better than I was." Another long silence. "About what happened?" She looked up, her eyes clear but sad. "Chloe came to see me after the divorce." I waited for her to continue. She screamed at me, called me a homewrecker, said I'd stolen her happiness. We aren't friends anymore." I blocked her. I sighed. It sounded exactly like Chloe. She was incapable of taking responsibility. It always had to be someone else's fault. "It wasn't your fault, Riley," I said firmly. "I know." She wiped her nose and gave a weak laugh. "I just feel like an idiot. I thought she was my sister. I told her everything. And she used me." I looked at her and realized we were in the same boat. We were both just people who had been played by someone we trusted. We both had bad eyes when it came to picking who to love and trust. "Well," I said, lifting my coffee cup, "here's to the past. And here's to being blind." She blinked, then let out a genuine laugh. It was like a ray of sunlight breaking through a storm. "Yeah," she said, clinking her beer bottle against my cup. "To being blind." The sound of the glass and ceramic clinking was clear and sharp against the hum of the diner. We talked for hours after that, about work, about life, about the small things. We didn't mention Chloe again. I found that Riley was actually a fascinating person, independent, tough, and surprisingly funny. Talking to her was easy. It was nearly 1 a.m. when we walked out. "Let me get you an Uber," I offered. "Don't worry about it. I live right around the corner," she said, waving me off. "And hey, I'm a big girl. I can handle myself." I laughed. "I'll watch you walk in, at least." She didn't argue. She gave me a small wave and disappeared into her apartment building. I watched her go, then turned to walk to my car. The night air felt cool and fresh. Maybe, when you lose the wrong person, you finally make room for the right ones. Who knows? I wasn't in a rush to find out. But for the first time in a long time, the future didn't look so bad. Story complete.